I believe that music is a universal language, that no matter what country you're from, no matter what time period you're from, music has always been and it will always be. And I think a lot of times we're focused on the person who's singing the songs, and rightfully so. But there's somebody behind that song. There are some people behind that song. And I got an opportunity to talk to some amazing songwriters today. And so we're going to talk to Maryanne J. George, and we're going to talk to Anthony Brown about the subject behind the pen. Join us. Guys, I'm super happy. Yeah. We were laughing before it even started. But I'm really happy because I get to pick your brains today. And that's exciting for me, right? Like, so we're talking to some amazing songwriters.
Amen.
I would say. It's you like struggling with the idea of being an amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, hello. I mean,
No, you are.
You got Maverick City Music here, but we also have your project, which, by the way, like, I don't know if people know like how great your project actually is. I'm dead serious.
Oh yeah, you were
I
there.
think it's an amazing.
The live recording
You were
with
there?
me in the back.
It was actually amazing, for real. And so, like, kudos to you and you, Mr. Jubilee Worship, and then you've got your own project.
Praise God.
It's super dope too. I remember with your project, one of my sons, Michael Perry, came to you,
my gosh.
and he was texting me while it was going on, like, Dad, it's crazy. The songs that are coming out of here. He was like just done just from the writing on this project. And so I'm glad that I kind of get to pick your brains around the whole songwriting process and wherever else we kind of
Where we gonna travel to?
Yeah, where else we travel to. So
Isn't it a journey?
I see
You
what you're doing there.
understand? You see?
Okay, I got it.
So when did you know that you were a songwriter? And how did you know? When did you know and how did you know?
Okay, so for me, I actually have been writing since I was probably about like 7 or 8.
Wow.
And it started, well, yeah, 7 or 8, and then later on down the line, I think like in middle school, my parents like bought me my first like little like Mac Mini Praise, and I got introduced to GarageBand, and I just knew I was about to be the next Chris Brown. That was my like destiny, like in my head. Like I knew I was gonna, that was gonna be the thing. But
you just gonna be R&B smooth?
hello,
Okay.
hello. I just want y'all to know, like the worship music wasn't in the plan.
Yeah, right.
I was ready to like cash these checks with like this top, like I'll do all the things. But no, so I started writing then, and I knew I loved to like write. I knew I loved to write songs back then. My friends would be out like playing like basketball, like doing all the things, be going to the pool, and I would be in my room at the crib with my computer, like fleshing out ideas and songs and stuff and listening and studying. And I ended up going to college for it, like fast forward later on down the line, and really started taking it seriously whenever I became like the official person to write songs for my church, like after college. So that was pretty much, that's my...
I don't think I knew I was a songwriter. I think I've been writing for a long time. Like I loved English, I loved writing essays. I used to write my friends' essays and like all the way through grad school. Really bad, yeah.
Okay. Did you get paid for it?
I did. I got paid. Yeah, I did. And there was like my little side hustle. So I feel like I always liked words and I always liked writing. I don't think I really felt like I was a songwriter. I had written a few songs before starting like writing camps, co-writing. I'd never co-written until like 2019, and did that with Maverick City, and we were doing like little writing camps at the time. That was like my first time collaborating, trying to do that, but never really considered myself like a songwriter until maybe 2019.
Okay, so you threw something out there already, right? You mentioned your stuff by yourself, but then you talked about collaborations. What's your favorite? Solo versus collaboration?
Collaboration.
Oh my gosh.
I think collaboration my favorite.
Dang.
But I think it's because we're not meant to do anything alone.
Do it alone.
So I feel like for me, collaboration is really beautiful. I think it's gospel.
So for me with collaboration, that's like becoming my world like now. Like now is like the time where like I'm collaborating with more like writers, more people. And I think it was like scary for me like when I first started collaborating because I'm used to like being in my room, like working on stuff, writing things, and you know, doing all that stuff, and not really having like accountability for like the language or like if this is right, or having to factor in opinions. And when I first started collaborating, it was a strong praise. I wasn't like, I wasn't like, oh yeah, like inviting of your ideas. Like that wasn't me. I was like, okay,
it was like, no, that idea sucks.
It's actually fine the way it is, and I'm gonna just take this back. No, but I will say that I found the most value and the most education in collaborating. Like absolutely.
So, because you use the word accountability, I would use the word vulnerability. I think there's a level of vulnerability that has to happen when you walk into that space to be able to share your ideas. And I don't even think that's just about songwriting. I think that's in any collaboration where you're coming, and especially something as sensitive as the sentiments of your heart, right? Like I'm sharing this with people sometimes that you don't even know, right? You can walk into a songwriting session and you don't know everybody who's in the room. What have you done personally in order to strip down and be able to bare your soul before people who are actually, in some ways, maybe critiquing what you're saying?
Just sit back and listen.
No, so for the vulnerability part, I had to learn to when the idea is first coming out, I had to learn to stop putting so much like value on it, like, and not be like super like married to it. So, like when I first used to like collaborate and work and write and things like that, if I had an idea, I'm like, I had thought it and processed it so much before I even spoke it that I'm like, no, this idea is not just an idea, it's me, it's who I am. So like that's how I felt about it. But later on down the line, I realized that like people enjoy collaborating with people who are not afraid to like look like the fool for a second, or look like, or just give the idea, or just shoot it out, or give and do the things. And then I learned, I think what really helped me strip down is whenever I got to college and I had to like collaborate as part of like projects, I noticed that we'd both be sitting in the session, and the reason that the sessions would like go horribly is because both of us were scared to like say anything, or scared to like, you know, put out any ideas. So I just started being like, you know what? Well, this is what's on the top of my mind. What if we write about this being in like the fridge?
Right, right.
They're like, oh, well, I don't know about that, but what about this? And like, it started something where we were able to come to a good place. So I think for me, like, it really helped me to just realize and know that everybody, when you're collaborating with somebody, they're kind of just waiting for the person who's going to go first, like for the person who's going to be comfortable to, you know, really say it and just get things going. So.
Yeah.
I think it's different for guys and girls. There's not as many female songwriters, so I don't know. I feel like sometimes I've been in rooms where I feel really safe and I feel like I can share, but a lot of the times if I'm feeling like a hindrance to being vulnerable or like something stopping me, it's usually because someone's actually not really ready to co-write or collaborate. And so it's like creating that feeling of safety, like I think is really important to me. I think once that is established though, like you can have my heart, here it is, and I can give it to you. But I find it a lot harder because with a lot of female songwriters, we're usually in rooms with men. And so it's really hard to like, and then, I mean, I'm a minority, so then it's like on top of that, it's really sometimes hard because I think it's half my fault, half their fault. But it's like, I think I tend to assume they're never going to really understand the place I'm coming from. So it's like, okay, we're going to like collaborate on this like super vulnerable personal concept. But it's like, and this is something I'm working through too, where I have to understand that even if people don't always understand me, they can sit with me through it. And so I think that's really important too, like remembering that for myself, but also creating a space that's like conducive for vulnerability, like breeding ground for it.
I think that makes me think about the fact that I think we bring our life experiences into that room, right? I don't think that when I even thought about sitting down with you, I didn't think about the fact that it might be different for a woman
Right.
sitting in that room versus a man
But
sitting
you
in
also
that room.
created a safe, like that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like I felt safe. Like I didn't, and I also had a relationship with you. So,
Yeah.
But a lot of times, like I remember being like thrusted into rooms where I'd never really met the person before, and sometimes it's great, most of the times it's not. Like just because it's like, okay, we're becoming friends for the first time, and now we're like supposed to be really personal and be able to share everything. It's like sharing with a complete stranger. Like the things I'm saying to songwriters are things I haven't really always verbalized. Like to myself, to my family, my friends. Like I just
I think that any opportunity worth having is one that you will be intimidated by. Any opportunity worth having is one that you will be intimidated by. And so I think because that is true, I think that we've got to learn how to navigate through intimidating moments. And I think a part of that happens with you and God, right? A part of that happens in your prayer time where you recognize that God is the one who opens doors, right? He brings me to these opportunities. And what I have come to realize is that if God has brought me to an opportunity, it means that I have something worthwhile for the space that I've been put in. And so my trust is not in me. My trust is not in my abilities, because if it was based on that, that intimidation would kill me. But when I recognize that, God, you order my steps, you're the one who's bringing me to this opportunity, it means that I have something to offer to this room, despite what other people bring. They cannot bring what I bring. They cannot bring what I bring.
How do we work through our insecurities in a space like that? I think vulnerability is one thing, but I think working through our own internal insecurities and struggles and challenges that we have that nobody even knows that we have when we've walked in this space. How do you work through your insecurity to say, hey, I know when I show up in this room, I've got to show up, and that person may be waiting for me to be the person. Like how do you work through that?
Man, if I'm honest, a lot of times, and this could be like healthy or unhealthy, but a lot of times my desire to deliver kind of like helps me to see my insecurities as a luxury and not necessarily something like to try to like. So if I'm like in a room, and there have been like, you know, quite a few times where I've been in rooms, like there are people who I see as like amazing, like you know, like monsters, like amazing, and I'm in a room and I'm writing with them, and I literally have to like, you know, I can feel like that moment when I'm like, dang, I don't want to say nothing. Like, they're gonna feel like my ideas are like that. They're gonna feel like, and it's like my desire to like actually like leave with something that's dope, you know, helps me to like think to myself and be like,
because I also only got one shot.
Yeah, I'm like, we don't really got too much time for
right.
you to be like thinking like that, or for you to like. So it's like, I'll take the risks, you know, if I feel like, you know, some of my ideas aren't received, I'll just keep thinking, I'll keep throwing it out there, and then essence like the insecurities and the fears, they don't go away, but I keep pushing myself to like, you know, to be there, or just make sure, you know, that I can provide like some sort of like addition or some sort of thing. So really it's just like my desire to produce something that helps me kind of like shoot, which might not be a healthy praise, but you know.
I think I probably have the very opposite.
Oh wow.
Like I'm very much like, yeah, this is how I'm feeling. I'm just gonna be honest. Like I kind of go into it very like, expect nothing from me today. What? And then it's like once I feel like, okay, I got that out. Like I'm just like, because I can be like that too. But then I feel like that pressure to like, oh, I have to show something. Like then I get in my head about that. So then I'm like, okay, let me just get it out. Like, and then I'll be like, hey, just being honest, I'm not like, I feel like I struggle with this. And so just have grace for me. It may take me some time, but hopefully we'll get going and feel good. And I just kind of tell them what I'm thinking and just hope for the best, Lord. But I started to like pray before I go into sessions too, like mentally, and I'll be like, just whatever fear I'm having, let it fuel me to create something that's honest. And I think that's for me.
I like that. Let the fear fuel me to create something honest. I love that.
I think that's what I have to do now. And so I feel like I always have this like tension of like holding the feelings I have, but at the same time not letting them like dictate like my future.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, because fear is not my future.
Hello.
So I have to kind of like, it's honestly a delicate dance as an artist, like, because I feel like we have a lot of emotions and feelings, and I want to always create a space for me to feel everything deeply, but at the same time not always hold them as truth.
Yeah.
As a manager and even as a songwriter, I have walked into rooms and been petrified, super intimidated by the space that I had just walked in. But what I have learned is that no matter how much fear is present, you still have to make sure that you maximize the moment. And for me, the greater fear is walking into a room and missing the moment. I think that has to be the bigger fear, because I don't know when or if I will ever get this opportunity again. And so as it relates to the idea of collaborations and collaborative partnerships, I think for me, I don't know when when this situation will come back around my way again. And so I will do it afraid. I think that if you wait for all fear to go, then you will actually end up doing nothing at all. You will actually be paralyzed. And so, yeah, it's okay to be afraid, but just make sure that the fear doesn't trump the opportunity that has now been presented to you.
I want to ask this, and hopefully you guys get this the way I'm going to ask it. Well, maybe.
All right. Right.
Are you a Christian songwriter, or are you a songwriter who is a Christian?
Oh my God, that's strong.
I'm a songwriter who's a
strong.
Christian. I'm a songwriter who's a
Okay,
Christian.
cool.
Like, I don't believe that every song needs to end with a resolve. Like,
Explain that. I love
mean,
that.
that's not what David did. Like, sometimes
David.
his Sam's were
Let's be
sad,
honest,
bro.
Jesus.
Yeah.
David was a mess.
Yo,
Sorry.
no, he was like, why? Like, literally,
Wildin'.
why am I sad? Why am I sad? Like, that was the whole thing. Why is my soul so downcast? Like, why am I sad?
Right.
The whole time just saying,
Then
why?
Psalm 33.
Why?
Right, next one.
Am I sad?
Right.
Like, my soul is vexed.
Yes.
That's the next
That's
song.
it.
I'm like, okay, like, where did we create this thing where we have to fix everything? Like, let's just get it out. Let's just say what you need to say.
Okay, so if we don't fix it, does that stop it from being a Christian song?
No.
I don't think
don't
if
think
we fix that, I don't think if we don't fix it, it stops from being a Christian song. I had a couple conversations about this with you. First of all, I think that is like amazing, that's beautiful, and that's like, if I'm honest, that's a space of maturity that sometimes it's even hard for like me to get through, because in my like space or in my vein, like I'll write songs like for the church, like for people to sing, and
Which I think is different. I do
which
think that's different.
Which is different. So for
Yeah.
me, but I don't feel like that's all I have,
Yeah.
right? I don't feel like that's all that's all I have. So I had there are a couple of friends who I had conversations with about this, and like the first one, I think they were like playing me a song off like an album that they were doing, and I was like, yeah, but it's like, are you okay? And he didn't even say like nothing to me. He was just like, what, the church just really needs to learn how to lament. That's what the church needs to learn how to do. And I was like, dang, that's crazy, because that's true. And then like another one of my friends, like they had put out a body of work that was so honest and really beautiful, and I was playing it and I was listening to it and I got convicted because like I told Holy Spirit, I said, like, I can't remember the last time I wrote a song for therapy. Like, I can't remember the last time I gave myself permission to write about like truly what I was feeling without like the resolve, without the thing. And I feel like that it is Christian, because I don't think like, I think what we've gotten in the habit of doing, because we want like, the hits and the songs that like make people feel good and songs that make people feel dope, is we've kind of like, how do I say it? It's been a roundabout way. It hasn't been directly, but we've kind of removed God from like the the heavier part of like the process.
Yeah.
In order to get to like the end where it's just like, oh yeah, like ain't got no money. Oh, but I know that God's gonna pay my bills.
Oh,
No, but okay, coming to a store near you. But no, but like
The family doesn't want it.
rush into those. Rush into those solutions because we feel like that's where God is.
Yes.
right, that's true.
We don't feel like God is in the part,
Yeah.
where, you ain't got the answers
Yeah.
yet, or you ain't got the stuff yet.
Just staying in the
And
valley.
so-
Like I've been in the valley and I'm not out the valley.
Yeah. And so with
Yeah.
that being said, I think I'm learning how to be a Christian who is a songwriter. I think I'm
Yeah,
like
I am too, and I think you're right. It takes a great deal of honesty and hard work to get there. Because
yeah.
someone I know, very wise person, actually once told me God hates liars. Like,
I think that sounds
hello,
like
it's
who was that?
Pastor Mark.
that sounds like
He was like,
sounds
God really hates
sounds
liars.
like apostolic counsel. That's what that sounds like.
He
Yikes.
said God hates liars, and I was like,
I mean,
no
he
way,
does.
No, I think he does too, and I think I grew up in a place where I was so encouraged, like faith, and yes, I get it, like I get it.
Yeah.
But it's like sometimes God's just like, okay, but that's not where you're at right now. Like, just tell me where you are. Just come as you are. Be yourself.
Like some of those old sayings like that we like t-shirts and stuff like it's like it kind of gets watered down, but there's a lot of truth to it, right? So there's these t-shirts that used to say faith over fear, right? But it doesn't say faith instead of fear, right? Like fear is present. It's just that I want my faith to be greater than it, but it doesn't mean that I can't acknowledge that I'm actually afraid. I'm petrified. I don't know what I'm going to do. Help me. Like, that's the faith part. Like, I need you to help me, but I'm still here and I'm still scared. And I think that we're not honest enough. You said something like, I want to write songs. I write songs for the church to sing, and I think that's great. But I think that we need songs that the church can sing and songs that the church can actually sit with and allow themselves to be processed and really have real moments with God. Because I think what happens is songs have always they're the soundtracks of our lives, right? And so they've always given us content to even like they teach us about God. They teach us how to speak to God. And I think that many times what we're seeing in songwriting is happening even in our prayer time with the Lord. And so we're going and we're worshiping, we're praising, and we're doing all of that. But then when it comes down to the real issues of my heart, I leave that out. I don't actually talk to him about that because nobody has modeled that for me. Nobody has shown me that this is acceptable because every time the worship team gets up, it's, we're going to praise you for the rest of our days.
What did David do? Like, that's literally...
Yeah, but we don't count David. We count David as we don't count him as a songwriter. We count him as, he's scripture.
Yeah, it's like when
That's
you...
crazy.
That we know that he's a song, that he was a song.
You're reading through this, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is real good for me to
right.
read through, so I can go ahead and be encouraged and like know that. You know.
But we don't write like most people don't write like that anymore. If you look at the top, 100 songs in Christian music, it's about how great he is, and
that's great.
we're going to continue to praise him, and we need that. But somewhere in there, we also need.
You need to.
Oh no, I'm not okay.
I have a question.
Good.
So do you actually... Okay, so I don't know how I feel. I'm actually working through this myself.
Yeah.
So congregational... Because I do think there's a difference between
Yes.
writing for church
Yes.
and writing for process. And
Totally agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, so hearing what you're saying, do you feel like worship songs should have a resolve that points to Jesus?
I think worship songs should,
like,
but I think
congregational
worship
songs.
is a.
Oh, I should change it. Not worship songs. Congregational songs.
Yeah.
Because I think it's all worship.
I think congregational songs should have a resolve, right? In the same way that I think sermons should have a resolve, right? Like I don't want a
Can you
sermon
imagine
that's
a-
like it's bad.
But like, and that's okay. Be encouraged.
So I think that should have a resolve, but I don't think that we should write only for the sake of the congregational moment. I need music. I need life music, right? Like I need someone to, now that we finished building each other up in the church, during the week, I need something to meditate on, right? Because what happened in that moment was great, but it's not enough for me to. And I think that I think we fight against people mainstream artists. I was gonna name some names, but I'm not gonna go there.
That's
But I
okay.
think we fight against some mainstream artists, and the Christians don't need to listen to this, but they're speaking about things that I'm
Right.
actually
That
dealing with,
Right.
Ooh, come on.
and you aren't.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we've left a void. We've
Void,
left a
yeah.
gap.
Sorry.
Even not just even in content, but even sonically, I think there's a gap,
true.
right? Because if everything sounds like Maverick,
Yeah.
right, or Shirley Caesar,
Yeah.
right, and those are the two extremes, then it's
Why
like.
is it Maverick or Shirley Caesar? Why are those the only?
That's it, right?
Why is there not?
That's
like,
all we got. Maverick or Shirley Caesar. If that's all that we have, then what about the person who just again sonically wants
Yeah.
more?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's gonna take the bravery of artists and songwriters
I was just about
to actually shift the perspective of the church.
yeah.
Right, I almost feel like the church is dictating what songwriters should do instead of songwriters dictating to the church what
What
like
it should be.
what it
how
should be.
like
Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
also think like I agree with you. I think there is a void, and I think like so when we have the mainstream artists saying the things, we also don't necessarily know where it's coming from, which can
Yes.
also influence the way we feel the things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we need more people who are strong in faith, who are still believers of Jesus, but are honest about where they're at and are able to like. I would much rather listen to a songwriter who is Christian chronicling a journey of grief or loss or something than someone who doesn't know Jesus and
Yeah.
is doing the same thing, because I can trust one
Yeah.
will lead me, even if it's not like, even if there's no resolve.
Yeah.
Like the heart behind it, I can trust. You know, which as a songwriter now, I'm like, that's a lot of pressure. I'm thinking to myself.
Yeah.
But I still think like I would trust that over like, because you don't
Yeah.
the where it's coming from. I mean, there's a lot of demonic influence too. So it can lead to things
Yeah.
that are sad.
That's so true. I never thought about that. But like even like in your like lamenting and stuff like that, there are like
Yeah.
separate places that it can
Right.
like come from.
Yeah.
Like you still, when you process, it's still important to like process like with the Lord.
Like I can hear, I know there are certain mainstream artists that really do such a great job, like sharing about their heartbreak or or just how sad they are. But it's like when I personally listen to it, because I understand a little bit more about the spirit world, like I can sense spirits behind it that are like, okay, a spirit of heaviness or a spirit of anxiety or depression, all of that.
Got it.
Right? But like if like you or me or Pastor Morris were to write something, like I'm not saying it needs to be like, oh, I was sad and then Jesus turned me around. He changed my name. Forever free, I am not the
Yeah.
same. Like it doesn't have to be.
I hate it. It
It doesn't have to end that
So
way.
I have like I have a real question though, because this is just me.
It was all fake.
No, it was. It really was. It was really like, oh, no.
Let's get to the real stuff.
No, let's get to the real stuff. No, but I have this question. Okay, so like, even in like processing and some like different things like that, I feel like just as who we are as like believers, like who like communicate, like what you're communicating is like Jesus, who is like the living hope.
Yeah.
So, how do you balance that whenever you're like working on like a body or working on something, and you're like, I want to be honest, I want to be like true, how do you balance that in the way where it's just like like, yeah, I want to like dump all this stuff, but
Yeah.
I also have like a responsibility to like
Yeah.
communicate like hope.
Yeah.
So
I think we try to balance it in a song as opposed to in a body of work.
That's what
I like that.
And I think
that's
that
really
I
good.
think that because we've gotten to this kind of phase where it's like single heavy and people just dropping a song
Hate it.
here,
Yeah.
I think that makes it very difficult.
But it's like it is. But that's like
That's what
culture.
it is.
That's
Right,
what it is
right.
like now.
But I think we have, again, I don't think we can go with every trend that's in culture because it doesn't make sense in our
like that.
context,
Yeah,
right?
that's real.
And so for us, there has to be presented a full body of work. Just it's like the scriptures, right? Like, what if there was just one chapter, right? There was, one chapter of Psalm, right? We would have been like, okay, David's just crazy, and it just ends that way.
David needs meds.
right. So it's like, hey, no, there's a full body. What's going on?
That was really strong. That was so strong.
There's got to be a full body of work presented so that, hey, this song didn't it didn't end in Jesus fixed it, but this project ends in Jesus fixing it, right? And I think we've got to start giving people what they need and not just what they want.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Oh my
And
gosh,
I think there's a level of bravery that is needed for us to actually do that, to break some of these, I guess, these norms.
Absolutely.
I agree. I miss the days where people would just drop an album.
Yeah, hello. I want to listen, and I want to listen from beginning to end.
I want to listen in silence with the lights off and a drink, like a hot beverage.
Tea.
Like coffee, and just like be able to. Because I used to do that. Like I used to listen to the album. Like
Me too.
I always talk about this. I miss the days.
Yeah.
I miss the days where like artists were protected, like they just could release the body of work and not have to speak.
Absolutely, and it wasn't about like
it speaks for itself.
It wasn't about your business. It wasn't about all of the stuff that's going on like behind the scene. It wasn't. It's like this
it's
is
just
my
the honest
art.
truth
This is
about
my music.
I don't have to speak for it. The music speaks for itself. I miss those days. Like I think, and I do agree. Like I think, I mean, if you're writing a whole sad album, like that's not great.
That's
I mean, that's just sad. Like I think, we do have a responsibility as followers of Jesus to communicate hope and to point to hope. And I trust that my music will do that. Like I don't necessarily have to say Jesus after every other line. Like,
absolutely.
Well, that was my question actually. So I'm gonna go right there. Right? Does a song have to mention Jesus for it to be Christian?
No, but my dad would say yes.
I know a lot of people who would say yes.
Dad would be like, Maryanne, you're absolutely wrong. Go back on
I don't
Pastor
feel
Morris's
like,
podcast.
I don't feel like so. There are a whole slew of songs that we sing on Sunday morning that they got the word Jesus in it like not one time.
No, I mean Chris Stapleton just sang the anthem, and it was like I felt Jesus in it. Did you? Don't lie to me. Y'all felt Jesus in that thing. Like,
I felt
I don't know if that's what I felt.
spiritual.
I don't know if I felt.
It felt spiritual.
It did.
But
okay,
I didn't
maybe
feel
not Jesus. Yeah, actually, you're right.
That's a whole
things are
nother show
spirits
too.
nowadays.
That's another show because we
another
can
show.
feel something, but it ain't always
It ain't
Jesus. Yeah.
No, I feel like
I stand corrected.
I definitely feel like that is. I feel like that is an outdated concept, and that's something that doesn't hold true and that doesn't stand.
So would you do it?
I've done it.
You've done it. Okay. Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. It's
Yeah.
I think what's interesting to note is that Jesus was never identified as a Christian. That's not to say that he wasn't, but he wasn't identified. There wasn't a label of Christian on Jesus. In fact, we read in the book of Acts that the label Christian didn't come until well after the early church was even established. And so the early believers weren't called Christians, but they were. They were people who followed Christ. I think that sometimes we are more concerned with bearing a label than we are actually doing the work and being the thing. And so I don't know that we actually need to label ourselves as a Christian artist or a Christian rapper or a Christian songwriter. I don't think that that's necessary. I think that we need to allow the work to speak for itself. And I think what's in you is going to come out of you. And so if I write about love, I write from a space of someone who understands that God is love. I understand the love of Jesus, and that's going to come out of me. If I read about fighting, it's still going to come from the space of understanding that at the end of the day, there's a need for reconciliation, right? Because that is what's in me. And so what's in me is always going to come out of me. I don't have to label it anything. It will just be what it's supposed to be.
What is your greatest fear as a songwriter? Or an artist. You both are artists as well. What's the greatest fear?
Jesus, you said the greatest?
The greatest.
Because it's a list.
Okay, I think mine is. I'll let
You can give a
It's
few if
what?
you want.
It's a
It is
list.
a list.
No, go
Oh,
ahead.
it's a
You
list,
give yours.
yeah. I mean, mine's like a book, to be honest. But,
Yeah.
but I think for me, it's like, I think being vulnerable, even in the rooms to write the songs now, especially since I'm hoping to, well, I want to create more music, obviously, but I feel like the next thing I create will be more process and less church. So it's like, when you come from the background of church, sometimes people are not ready to hear the things that you have to say, because they're like, oh wait, what? You feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like, so I think for me, that
There's a level
feeling
of judgment that
judgment,
comes.
or like, oh yeah, she's just gonna veer off. And
She done
just
fell off.
down the hill.
Yeah.
So,
Fire. Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
You worldly.
So, no, one of my biggest, one of my biggest fears is that I would feel like, one of my biggest fears, I feel like I would put out something that kind of like talks a little bit more about how we get to like a no bondage, or how we get to like the things and all this stuff, and that it would be like oversharing, it would be too much, and people would like be like, okay,
That's a lot.
whoa,
Yeah.
we need to just put him on pause
Yeah.
real quick, you know, because it's true, everybody like can't handle, everybody can't handle. But the other thing that I think my biggest fear as a creative or songwriter, so this is like, might be super like churchy or super like
As long as it's
whatever
true.
you want to call
Yeah.
it, but when I started, you know, I've had like several encounters with the Lord about why I write, why I do what I do, why, you know, I do this, like what I'm supposed to do with these songs. And I think one of my biggest fears is like that all of the things, you know, that come with it, or all the things that are around, all the things that we mentioned in this conversation here that, you know, might be just a little like problematic, or the fears that you spoke about will cause me to treat it as less than it is and not be as sensitive like anymore. I think that's one thing that I'm constantly like, you know, and it could, you know, it could be, that could be like too much, could be like, yeah, just calm down, you're gonna be all right. But
Do you mean like not
No, I
staying
don't.
true to it?
not staying
Okay,
true
gotcha.
to basically what he called me to do, and then also just like get into the space where I have to like shell it out and like fall in,
Yeah.
you know, out of love with it, or losing like reverence for it to the way where I'm not like, you know.
I don't
you
think that's
understand?
too much. And the reason why I'm saying that is I think whatever we do as Christians, as believers, there's a different level of responsibility
Right.
that comes along with it.
Yeah.
And I think you don't want to, I guess, overdo it, but I think more people are in danger of underdoing it than
Yeah.
overdoing it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's easy. I think whatever you do consistently is at risk of you losing the reverence and the awe and the
Yeah.
because it just becomes typical, right?
Yeah.
Routine,
And
yeah.
routine, right? That's actually the word I was looking for, right?
And like also like what is like what like pushes you and what's driving you to do it. Like, for example, if the Lord does come and say, hey, I want you to like release this, I've been processing you about like these things, I want you to write this way, I want you to like release this and do, you know, these things, but you know, I'm stuck on the fact that, oh man, well, like my best stuff is like congregational, so like I should, you know, like things like that. I don't want to be in the space to be like, you know, like stuck on that. I
Yeah.
want to be able to be true to just whatever like I'm
You wanna
assigned
be
to.
malleable,
Yeah, I
too.
want to be like malleable, and that's, it's not just necessarily like, oh yeah, man, like I'm feeling like this, or like, you know, like what. So yeah.
Yeah,
It's really beautiful.
yeah.
I mean, that's encouraging and convicting for me, because I'm like, just say how you feel. But at the same time, I'm like, what would you like me to say? Or how would you like me to say it? Like, you're inviting, I think you're in a really beautiful way, I think you're inviting the Lord into that process, which challenges me, because I feel like sometimes I'm so committed to just say it.
Yeah, because there's like this balance, because I think whether you're a songwriter or a person just living your life, you know, out loud before people, I think we're responsible for what flows out of our mouths. And just because it's in my heart doesn't mean that it should flow out.
Right.
hello, some of that stuff need to stay in
In
there,
there.
and Lord fix it before
Shut it
anything
up.
comes right.
Right.
And so I think it is a delicate balance, and I don't know that I know we cannot do that successfully without the aid of the Holy Spirit,
Absolutely.
right? And so I don't know. I think to your point, I do get concerned about how much is too much.
Right. I think I get that concern too.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how much is too
Because
much?
there are lines, but I feel like, again, I think these days, culture affects Christianity more than Christianity affects culture. And I think that the culture of the world is, if I feel it, say it. If I think it,
Yes.
do it.
And I also,
And I think it has, weaved itself into how we do what we do, even,
Yeah.
So, listen, I can do this like all day with you guys,
Yeah, we can.
but we can't. So,
Time,
so you said you got
I'm like,
time.
I'm here all day.
pretty much.
So,
All day.
give us. We could keep talking, but we gonna close this out. So, give final thoughts to any songwriter, any creative, anybody who is attempting to do this the way of God, the way that God has given it to them. Just give them some final words. Now everybody want to
No.
prefer one another.
Man. Yeah. Like.
Okay, I guess that's me. I would say, like, and this is what I always say, is write from where you are. Like, don't try to write from a place that you want to be. Although sometimes I think that's nice, but, like, I think writing from where you are tends to unlock a lot more freedom. And so I encourage anybody who's trying to songwrite, write from where you are, but, like, with the intention of, like, God actually knowing every part of you.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, if you're of the Lord and if you're His child, He knows you really well. He knows you better than you know yourself. And so when you write from where you are, it's just more honest. And that doesn't mean that God can't be in that with you, because
Yeah.
He definitely can. But I think a lot of times we feel like it has to fit a formula, or like we're all trying to be like Naomi Rain, or we're all trying to be like Shirley Caesar, or we're all trying to be like
Again, the
Anthony
spectrums. It's the spectrum.
we're all trying to be like, I don't know, like,
Shirley Caesar.
but really it's like we were created, there's a different side of who God is in each of us.
Yeah.
And He wants to highlight that. That's why He's chosen us to do it. So stay true to yourself, stay true to who you are, and just write from that place. That's what I would say.
Love it.
Yeah. To add to that, and this is coming off literally like what you just said about like why you're in the rooms that you're in. That's so beautiful, so inspiring. I'm gonna play that back when this is, we can just run it back. No, but I would say, understand why you do it.
Yeah.
Like know why you do it. Why are you writing? And like what is this gift for? Really, like, seek like God, and ask Him for it, because He'll tell you. He'll reveal it to you. He'll give it to you. And once you have that, wherever it takes you, whatever direction you go, wherever you're like moving to, you'll always have like like a compass. You'll always like know. So yeah, just know why. It'll help you stay integral.
Can I add one more thing?
Go for it.
I would say the other thing is, like, I think a lot of times we get hung up on the identity of, like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm a songwriter, I'm an artist, blah, blah, blah. But I think a lot of times we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to create, where really I think we just need to focus on relationship and just living your life.
Yeah.
And just trust
Yeah.
that the song will come. Because
Absolutely.
you're going to live through life, you're going to have experiences, and then you're going to be like, wow, I should write this down.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I should record this. Or
Yeah.
I think when I started to get out of my head, or like when I had to have like a scheduled time to do this, where I'm like, okay, like it would have this, it wouldn't feel authentic to me, at least for me. But when I just started like being a mom, being a friend, being a worship leader, like I just started doing and being who I am in Christ, like, and letting my relationship with the Lord precede all those things, it started to feel more natural to say what He was telling me to say. So just live life. Like, stop.
life, yeah.
Like, don't put this pressure on you to create something all the time.
Love that. I love that, and I love you guys. Thank you for sitting with me. Thank you for doing this. And, Let's do it again.
Let's do it.
Thank you for watching this episode of Talk to Me, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single thing. We'll see you next time.